So, been a while since my last Elden Ring video. Been even longer since I hit as many views as my first, so let's try again. I played the new Elden Ring DLC, Legend of the Scud Tree, and let me tell you, it is fucking I have a few problems with this expansion, and we'll get into that, but for now, I'm just gonna explain the gist of this DLC, and then I'm gonna glaze the ever-loving scud out of it. So, Elden Ring lore speedrun. Queen Marika is the ruler of the lands between and a vassal for the Greater Will, which is basically God. The Elden Ring god created this fucking thing, which is called the Elder Fling, which basically serves as the different fundamental laws of the land. One of the runes on this Ender thing is the Rune of Destined Death, which is basically the thing that enforces mortality on all those who aren't gods. Queen Marika was challenged by the chief of the Badlands, Hoaraloo, but instead of fighting, they banged pelvises, and this gigachat of a man became the first Elden Lord, taking the title of Godfrey, which means he is also a ruler of the land. He was also batshit crazy with bloodlust, so he was given a JoJo stand for Sana named Sirash to keep him calm. What does the lands between mean? Fuck if I know, but I've always thought it meant the lands between life and death. Godfrey and Marika have 3 children together, being 2 omens and 1 normal dude named Godwin. The 2 omen brothers are named Morgott and Mog, and because they are omen, whom are believed to be cursed at birth, they are hidden away and no one is ever to know that these omen are children of Queen Marika. Morgott hates himself for what he is, and actively shuns himself for it, while Mog eventually starts to embrace his horned omen nature and gets into some blood magic. He then gains a cult following as the Lord of Blood. In the time Godfrey and Marika are together, the symbol of worship is a tree called the Crucible. No, not that tree, that's the Erd tree, that comes later. No, not that one either, that's the Scud tree. Around this time, Queen Marika declares war on the Fire Giants for being infidels. In this war, she basically kills all of the giants but one, leaving him to guard the Forge of the Giants, which contains the only thing capable of destroying the Crucible and by extension the Erd Tree, the Flame of the Fell God. Queen Marika fought the Fire Giants god and won. At the same time, a warrior by the name of Radagon started slapping hams with Queen Renala, the headmaster of the Raya Lucaria Academy of Sorcery, basically Hogwarts. He had 3 children with her, being Radahn, Lunar Princess Ranni, and Praetor Rykard. Radagon got bored of Renala, took the kids, and left her with a prop from the original Jurassic Park movies. And then she went batshit crazy after the loss of her love, and her people locked her inside the Grand Library of Raya Lucaria, where she continued to go fucking insane. Radahn went on to literally conquer the stars, halting the night sky in place to save the sorcery town of Celia from being devastated by a meteor. He mastered gravity magic as well, so that he could always ride his trusty steed Leonard, even after he became the size of your mother. And despite Godfrey and his followers being banished from the lands between, becoming what are now known as Tarnished, when Radagon and Marika started steaming hams together, Radahn still looked up to Godfrey and wanted to be just like him, hence the lion imagery at Redmane Castle, and on Radahn's armor. He also greatly looked up to his own father though, which is why he chose the name for his castle, Redmane. Together, Marika and Radagon have 2 children, being Malenia and Miquella. These 2 are the literal golden children of this family tree. No, they're literally part of the golden lineage. Miquella is cursed to forever be in the body of a young boy, and Malenia is cursed with a new plague ink disease called the Scarlet Rot. She trains with a swordmaster called the Blind Swordsman and becomes an absolute G with her blade, calling herself the Blade of Miquella. Both her and Miquella are extremely close. They are also extremely close to Godwin. At some point, Marika takes the Rune of Destined Death from the Elven Bling and hides it away, tasking her pet toddler eater named Malekith to protect it. Destined Death. Ranni and Rykard start scheming and decide to hit a devious lick with the help of a group called the Black Knight Assassins. They steal the Rune of Death from Malekith on the night of the Black Knives and imbue their fucked up knives with it. Ranni and Godwin are eliminated, and subsequently emoted on. However, a curse mark is carved into each of their backs. Godwin's soul is killed, but his body lives on in undeath, while Ranni's body is killed, but her soul is free to move on to whatever it wants to do, which ends up being possessing a doll that resembles Rena the Witch. It's not important. Basically, Godwin becomes the Flood from Halo, except he's essentially brain dead and has no control of himself. He spreads this weird thing called Deathroot, which creates a group of creatures and people called those who live in death. Basically just skeletons and zombies who can't die. Fast forward a bit, and basically everyone's off doing their own thing. Malenia and Miquella don't believe in the Golden Order, so they go off and form the Halig Tree, all the way past the consecrated snowfields. Basically just a haven for whoever wants to follow them. Radahn is doing his own thing with his army in Caelid, Ranni's presumed to be dead, Rykard's blasting Brotherhood of the Snake by testament over in Mount Gelmir, and Godric is Honestly, I don't know. Honestly, I can't tell who he is, where he's from, or who the fuck Godfrey is, but both of these dudes have a hard-on for grafting, which is the process of attaching a bunch of other limbs to yourself. They both try and raid Leyendell, the home of the Golden Order, but Godric disguises himself as an old lady to escape back to Stormvale Castle after losing a fight with Melania, and Godfrey gets imprisoned in a nearby Everjail. These two and Rykard stay right where they are until the player arrives to boom gang their shit. Queen Marika goes full girl boss and shadows the Elmer Twink, and as such, she's locked away within the Erdtree by the Greater Will, while Radagon desperately tries to repair it for the next, like, few hundred years, I think. They're both hidden inside, and the only way to get inside is to burn it down with the flame of the fell god. Yeah, I didn't mention that earlier. With no one to rule the lands between, everyone goes batshit crazy, and the Shattering begins, which is basically a war whereby all of the children of Radagon, Marika, Godfrey, and Renala fight to obtain all of the Great Runes, and Godric for some reason. Some are just stolen, while two in particular are fought for by Radahn and Melania in the Caelid Wilds. The fight ends in a draw, by which Melania nukes the entirety of Caelid with her Scarlet Rot and goes into a coma, while Radahn is now brain dead and just wanders around eating corpses and shaking his fist at the sky. Melania is taken back to the Halig Tree by the biggest of all Giga-Chaz, Clean Rot Knight Finley. During this time, Miquella put himself in a cocoon to hopefully change into a different form, but while Melania is away, her unconscious Mog steals Miquella to make him his consort. Basically, Mog is a freaky-ass incest pedo-omen. Mog waits for Miquella's cocoon to hatch, but nothing happens. Also, plot twist, Marika and Radagon are the same person. Bada! Why? Who the fuck knows, but it would certainly explain why Melania and Miquella were born with such severe curses. Eventually, Rykard is devoured by the god-devouring serpent, but instead of dying, he merges with it and forms the Legion of Tarnished who hunt each other for sport. And the reward for ranking up in this high legion? You get to be vored by Daddy Serpent, adding to his size and numerous corpses. With no one ruling Leyendell, Morgoth takes over and guards the entrance to the Erdtree. He casts a projection of himself at Stormvale Castle, who goes by Margit, to fight off and kill any Tarnished coming through because he knows Godric is a sniveling pussy and can't win a fight against said Tarnished. Now, we're all caught up. In order to access this DLC, you'll have to, number 1, kill Radahn, and number 2, kill Mog. You can then touch Miquella's hand, and enter the Realm of Shadow. Instead of the Erdtree, you have the Skidoo Tree, which is pronounced the Shadow Tree. This is Old English. But, of course, I call it the Scud Tree, because it's funny. Here, you find out that Marika and Radagon had another child that no one knew about named Mesmer. He's an asshole, and seems to have control over the flame of the fell god, at least that's what I think. Marika told him to burn a bunch of people to death, so he did. And now you're caught up. Full disclosure, at the time of writing this script, I had not completed the DLC. I have now, but I'm not going to be spoiling what I do know because I want you to play it yourself and find out. One of the biggest things I was looking forward to when it came to this DLC was the music, and by God did they deliver. Especially on the music for the Divine Beast Dancing Lion. This motherfucker was infuriating to fight, but every time I died or heard the music swell, I couldn't help but say, God damn it, this music is so fucking good. He also happens to be my absolute favorite boss design in this entire game. He looks really fucking cool. And they took a really good approach to him, making him look like sort of a Chinese dancing dragon costume. His music is also more grained in traditional Chinese festival music, which isn't a theme touched on anywhere else in Elden Ring as far as I'm aware. This boss's design is absolutely terrifying, but his moveset has sort of a beautifully elegant chaos. I fucking love this boss so much, despite how hard he whooped me for 2 hours. A lot of bosses here felt very new and different compared to those found in the base game. Maybe it's just because I've played through the base game about 12 times, but R'Lana and the Demi-Human Swordsman especially felt fresh. R'Lana is definitely one of the easier bosses in the DLC, but she was extremely fun to fight. She dodges your attacks and keeps you on your toes, but she'll occasionally back off to let you heal. The weapon she drops is also fucking god tier, and her armor looks dope as hell despite giving my character some absolute birthing hips. There's a lot of reward for exploration in terms of lore discovery, and a lot of answers to questions posed in the main story, while also posing plenty more. The enemy designs are also on fucking point. The armor, the weapons, everything about this DLC is just dripping with badassery and intrigue. The atmosphere is very mixed, but in the best way possible. There were certain areas in the game that reminded me of other Dark Souls games, namely Dark Souls 3. It's really This is like... This reminded me a lot of the beginning of Dark Souls 3. This looks... Yeah! Holy shit! This looks not exactly, but very similar to the area where you first... like where you fight your first boss. Well, second boss. Vord of the Boreal Valley, baby. But my favorite part of this DLC by far is the way it made me feel like I was playing the game for the first time again. Walking out and seeing the Chud Tree for the first time felt almost the same as the first time I walked out of the tutorial area and saw Limgrave for the first time. Exploring this map feels weird because it doesn't feel like you're meant to go in any specific direction, aside from the places that are closest to you, obviously. And I have this problem of worrying whether or not I'm actually playing the game right. But after a while, that worry subsided, and this DLC made sure to lay out the welcome mat and help me feel right at home. Another great part is the enemy pool. Yes, a lot of them are ridiculously difficult to the point that some might feel like genuine mini-bosses, but conquering them grants quite an intoxicating feel of, dare I say, pride and accomplishment. Now on to what I don't like. Adding on to the difficulty, I understand that this game is hard. I understand that this DLC is meant to push the envelope a bit. I also understand that you are very heavily inclined to use shields and level your Reverend Spirit and Scud Tree blessings to increase your damage and damage resistance. I have no problem with any of this whatsoever. I've had an enormous amount of fun. However, a big issue a lot of people had with Elden Ring's base game is that the bosses moved like they were playing Sekiro, while the player is stuck with the same movement speed they've had since Dark Souls 1, save for jumping. This was a particularly potent problem with Malenia, but well, I beat her 3 times, so get better at the game. But in all seriousness, I did find that this issue was present in a good chunk of the enemies. Unfortunately, it's most potent in my favorite DLC boss, the Divine Beast. He's beautiful to watch, but 95% of the difficulty from his fight comes from the fucking camera. There were way too many times where I quite literally could not tell what was going on because of how many effects were on screen or because of the angle of the camera. Normally, I just refrain from using target lock, but in this case it felt impossible to get a proper hit in that way. Some of the wandering enemies, too, have some attacks that just feel downright bad. The biggest thing I hated about Crucible Knights in the beginning of my playtime of the base game was the fact that no matter how much distance you tried to create in order to heal or replenish your mana, they would just lunge across the entire arena and hit you for 1/3 of your health. It's a problem here, too. There were also a few times where the game just kinda decided, fuck you, I'm taking 2/3 of your health for no reason. Delayed attacks and never-ending combos are a decently large problem here too, but I wouldn't say they're as prevalent as in the base game. Still a problem though. Now, I don't have much of a problem with the difficulty, but if your enemy can literally solo Malenia, then you might have a slight balance issue. All in all though, this is easily in the top 3 for my favorite game expansions. I've had an absolute blast with the game and thoroughly ogled at its beauty, and I'm going to keep doing so. My final rating is 11 out of 10. Get better at the game. Oh, hello. Why did you just squirt? Yeah, get pranked. Get slapped.